Luciana Berger has rejoined the Labour Party. Many are claiming this as a huge moral victory in the fight against anti-Semitism. I think it's great that Berger feels that she can rejoin Labour. There are some of the online left who have been pretty poor when there's been discussions around her. Some have been completely denying her experience of anti-Semitism, that she had an ulterior motive when she left the party. It's hard to prove someone's motives. We don't know what other people are thinking. So with the lack of any evidence that this was some kind of political move, then we should absolutely believe when people say they have experienced racism. Most of the anti-Semitism she received was from the far right and not inside the party. However, she did experience it within it, and that is disgraceful. Of course, just because most of it was outside the party doesn't mean we should ignore it when it's from Labour members. For example, I'm quite clearly brown. If I was a Labour member, and I haven't been for years, but if I received just one case of racism inside the party, and that made me leave, you shouldn't question why I felt the need to leave. I'd be pretty angry that the response was, yeah, but most of it was outside the party. You only had a small number. What's the real reason you're leaving? So we need to bear that in mind. However, through no fault of Berger, the Labour rights and the media are absolutely weaponizing this again. It's arguable that anti-Semitism is worse under Keir Starmer. I've pointed out the evidence of this in many videos on this channel, so I don't need to go into it again. Yet the narrative around this comes as no surprise to us that Corbyn's Labour was morally repugnant and Starmer has cured the party. Starmer and the Labour right are cynically using Luciana Berger's case as a factional weapon. Conflating Corbynism and left-wing politics with anti-Semitism is one of the biggest McCarthyite campaigns in British political history. Those that jump on this factional campaign have absolutely no interest of fighting racism in and outside the party. Now, for those that don't know, there was a similar campaign, albeit far smaller, against Ed Miliband. You can see on screen some of the headlines that attacked Miliband back when he was leader. Jews against Miliband. The boundaries of Ed Miliband's loyalty to the Jews. British Jews are plagued by a troubling question this election. Is the Labour leader Jewish enough? Does he have loyalty to the tribe? Labour's first Jewish leader is losing the Jewish vote. The Jewish community is preparing to break with Labour. Ed Miliband needs to ask himself why. So as you can clearly see, Ed Miliband is Jewish. Miliband dared to speak up for Palestinians. He wasn't particularly strong on the issue, but the party was certainly going the right way. This was also done in the US against Senator Bernie Sanders, one of the most left-wing politicians in the country, who has also spoken up for Palestinians. This is a quote from Mosaic. At a rally last week for the senator and presidential candidate Bernie Sanders, a man unfurled a flag bearing a swastika and began shouting anti-Semitic slurs in what was mistakenly an attack targeted at the first Jew to be a serious contender for the presidential nomination of a major American political party. None of that, writes Jonathan Tobin, changes the fact that Sanders has cultivated a coterie of anti-Semitic supporters, advisors and surrogates, not limited to Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar. According to this Jonathan Tobin, Sanders being on the receiving end of horrific anti-Semitism is actually partly his fault. Chilling stuff. It's also worth mentioning that Ed Miliband's dad was relentlessly smeared by the press, calling him a traitor, in which many people attacking him were probably using it as an anti-Semitic dog whistle. The Labour right seem to be fairly quiet on this. There was, however, one man who went on the BBC to call out these hateful attacks. I'll give you 3 guesses who. That's right, it was Jeremy Corbyn.
Independent Left Corresponding Society, a group formed by Ralph Miliband in the 1980s. Thank you very much for coming along to talk to us. Were you surprised by this Daily Mail article, and what do you make of the timing of it?
Astonished. I mean, the idea that you could attack somebody because of their father's views, who is already dead, and then use such ludicrous language such as he hated Britain, was an enemy of Britain and all this stuff. I mean, come on. Ralph Miliband was a refugee, came to Britain, made it his home, studied at Acton Technical College, went to university and achieved an incredible academic career, and went in the Royal Navy, risked his life, survived happily, and then to be denounced in these lurid terms is appalling, but also the timing is interesting, and I think it's backfired badly on the Daily Mail and the writer, because people will see through this very, very quickly for what it is, a cheap attack on somebody's father. And now, I am a great admirer of Ralph Miliband, and I think his views were brilliant, and I think he's somebody that should be listened to very carefully.
Starmer's Labour doesn't want Jewish people in the party who are on the left or who are critical of Israel. That's wrong, and anti-Semitic. They will continue to shut out Palestinian voices, continue to ignore the hierarchy of racism, and will continue to purge left-wing Jewish people. Using Berger's case as a moral victory for the Labour right will do nothing to end anti-Semitism in the party. Rather, they are just sweeping it under the rug.